George Soros was born with the name György Schwarz in Budapest, Hungary. He had an extremely rough childhood because his country was invaded by the Nazis and he was persecuted because of his Jewish origin. Before the persecution, his mother owned a thriving silk shop and his father was a lawyer. In 1936, the family changed its name from the German Jewish name Schwarz to Soros because anti-Semitism was more and more common in Hungary. The father chose this name because it was palindrome and because in Esperanto language means will soar. George was just 13 when Nazi Germany invaded Hungary and Jewish kids were expelled from school. The Soros family saved itself because they had false paperwork saying that they had Christian descent. Later that year, he was took under a Hungarian official who had a Jewish wife he was hiding as well. In 1945, he survived the bombings and the home-to-home battle that took place between Russians and Germans in Budapest. It was an encirclement of the Russians around Budapest that lasted 50 days until they conquered the city. In 1947, Soros moved to England and started studying at London School of Economics. In the meantime, he worked as a waiter and railway porter. He got a bachelor degree in science of philosophy and later a master in the same subject. After the master, he had his first job in the finance field at Merchant Bank Singer and Friedlander at London office, where he worked in the arbitrage department. This department focuses on taking advantage of imbalances in the market. For example, taking advantage of linked assets that behave differently, like the price movement of a company's common stock and its relative convertible bonds. In 1956, he moved to New York City to join F.M. Meyer's firm as an arbitrage trader. He focused his trades on European stocks that were becoming more and more popular in the US thanks to the cold and steel agreements, which paved the way for the start of the European Common Market and later the European Union. In 1959, he moved to Wertheim Co firm in New York City, where he worked as a European stocks analyst until 1963. It's in this period that he further develops his investment theory based on his professor Karl Popper principles. It's based on the principle that assets prices move based on often imperfect ideas investors and speculators have. This leads the market having virtuous and vicious cycles, so times of booms and times of busts. In 1963, he moved from Wertheim Co to Arnold and S. Bleichroder and served as vice president until 1973 at the investment bank. In 1966, he created a fund that followed his investing principles with $100,000 seed capital. In 1969, he raised $4 million from investors for his Double Eagle fund, including $250,000 of his own. In 1970, Soros created his own fund, but he started having conflict of interest. In 1973, when the Double Eagle Fund was managing $12 million, Soros gave investors the chance to either move their capital to Soros-owned fund or staying with the investment bank. He later renamed his fund as Quantum Fund, and it went straight until 1981, when Soros managed around $400 million. In that year, the fund suffered a big loss. It lost 22% in 1 year, and Soros was left with half of the capital under management. The fund later recovered and he continued to grow. One pivotal moment in Soros' career was in 1992 when he made the famous pound short, which caused the so-called Black Wednesday. This is how it worked out. At that time, the euro didn't exist yet, and all the currencies of the countries that were part of the European Union had a fixed exchange rate. So he borrowed the equivalent of $10 billion in pounds from British banks and exchanged it all in US dollar. The British central bank budged whether to delink the currency and let it float freely, or raise interest rates in order to regain the value the pound had lost. In the end, the central bank withdrew the pound from the European exchange rate mechanism, so Soros gave back the banks the pounds he owed and made more than $1 billion since the pound sensibly lost value. Because of this and many other things, he faced lots of criticism. For example, economist Krugman harshly criticized him for causing currency crisis just for quick profits. He faced justice because he took advantage of insider information on a group of investors trying to bring the bank Société Générale private, and it was fined for this trade in France. Criticism on Soros comes both from left and right. From the left, he is perceived as a ruthless speculator who causes crisis only for the sake of making a profit. On the right, instead, he is attacked for financing through his foundation Open Society, migration organizations, and ONGs that facilitate illegal migration, like the ships in the Mediterranean, bringing people from Africa to Europe. Trump accused him of financing the mass migration from Central America to the United States. He faced harsh criticism in Hungary as well, where the organizations thought to be helping migrants are heavily taxed. The legislation was called Stop Soros, as a matter of fact. He supported democratic forces in the former Soviet Union and its allies before it fell apart. He supported the Rose Revolution in Georgia and played a key role in the birth of a democratic government. Some of his initiatives were blocked in states such as Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, places where democracy doesn't thrive at all. He financed groups in Kosovo fighting for independence from Serbia, and he's been very active in the US as well. He financed groups that would pass the decriminalizations of marijuana possession until 1 ounce. He helped similar policies pass in states such as California, Nevada, Alaska, Oregon, Colorado, and Maine. He also been an advocate for euthanasia and financed groups supporting it. Before Brexit referendum, he financed groups for the remaining party. His name came out in the Panama Papers as well. In 2018, a pipe bomb was sent to his mailbox, but he saved himself. Even though he is Jewish and faced the Holocaust, he has strongly criticized Israel and its policies and funded NGOs who were against the installation of a Jewish state in the Holy Land. He criticized the way Israel treated the terrorist menace coming from Palestinians, saying that victims of violence would then become perpetrators of violence. In 2017, Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, started a campaign with billboards with Soros on, and with the statement saying, "Don't let Soros have the last laugh." First, it was perceived as anti-Semitic, but then Israel's foreign ministry took sides with Hungary, stating that Soros constantly undermines Israeli elected governments. In the US, he's been financing Democratic campaigns for a long time. Al Gore, John Kerry, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton were all granted financing from Soros. In Europe, he advocated for a Marshall Plan made by the Union to help Africa in order to diminish the migration flow. One thing that both Trump and Soros agree on is the threat of growing China. Soros urged the United States not to let Huawei and ZTE to take control of the 5G infrastructure and claimed that Xi Jinping dictatorship is the biggest threat towards democracy all around the globe. He also criticized the Big Brother surveillance taking place in China. When war in Crimea and eastern Ukraine broke out, he pushed Western powers to recognize the threat of Russia and pushed them to harshly sanction Russia. Soros Foundation, due to this, was banned from operating in Russia. On the other side, he received lots of recognition, for example, for financing black students in South Africa during apartheid. He received honorary doctorate degrees from Yale University, University of Bologna in Italy, University of Oxford in England, and Corvinus University in Budapest. He was nominated in the Hedge Fund Manager Hall of Fame. There are many books about him and his investing style. The Alchemy of Finance is an investment classic, link in the description. If you're looking for his biography, Soros, The Life and Times of a Messianic Millionaire, the link is in the description as well.